G'day. How are we all? Vulture. Welcome to my channel. Now, I'd like to start off by thanking everyone who subscribes and everyone who likes and shares me far and wide. And also thank you to those few kind souls who comment about me smoking on my channel. It's very kind of you to be concerned about my health, but I assure you, I'm not doing myself any damage. I don't smoke tobacco. So here we are then, on a Thursday afternoon, and I thought I would do a bit of a vlog, just a little fun podcast, as it were, a chat about the laminates. So, I was a woman in my 20s during the 90s. So, I used to watch Friends, of course, mainly because it was on free-to-air television. We only had two television channels, where I lived in rural Western Australia during the 90s. And I was a bit isolated in my rural Western Australian lifestyle, and there wasn't much going in the way of entertainment other than television. So of course I started to watch Friends. And I enjoyed Friends for a couple of seasons. I did. I made allowances for the fact that the main three female roles of Rachel, I know their names in real life, but not that role. So it was Rachel, Phoebe, and Monica. I could make allowances for the fact that they were played by like Stick and Sex, or looking like they're on the verge of an eating disorder, because that's Hollywood in those days, right? The camera adds £10. You know, they need to have skinny people on television because that's escapism. They're promoting the glamorous thing, and no one wants to look at like curly people on camera, right? And the first couple of seasons of Friends were like moderately amusing. You know, it was fun. There were some very funny moments. And then Monica's character started doing the flashbacks where she was in the fat suit. And when she was in the fat suit, she looked like me, because I had, undiagnosed at the time, lipedema. So I was a very big girl, as people kept telling me. Oh, big girl. And I really did feel like fat shamed, although the term wasn't around yet. I felt disappointed in my Friends. It made me remember a big reality check that if you lived in the mythical world of Central Perk, the coffee shop where all those friends on the series sat around and drank their coffee and talked about dating and stuff, if I walked in, all those characters would snigger and point and look at me as a pity subplot or a comedy punchline, and they wouldn't want to be my friends at all because I didn't look like them. So, and I'm really concerned actually that Friends has sort of had this major revival in the 2020s, because it worries me that like young girls will go around putting their finger down their throat and purging, trying to look like Jennifer Aniston or Courtney Cox Arquette of the 90s. A dreadful thought. But now I am body positive and appearing on camera regularly, au naturel, as it were. Back in the 90s when, you know, Brad Pitt was marrying Jennifer Aniston, well, I would have rather die than let anyone see me naked, let alone appear on screen the way that I am, or was, or whatever. But now I accept my body for what it is, and I am up for any sort of acting job, really. I've you know, I have always been in theatre, have always been prone to amateur theatrics, as it were, and productions and film and excuse me, that's what I did at uni, was film, that sort of thing. And now here I am in Ireland doing comedy and a bit of acting here and there. But this brings me on to the Laminates List. So, in Friends, do you remember there's an episode where Rachel and Ross, excuse me, I feel a presence. Something's climbing up my leg. Excuse me 1 minute, chaps. I shall return. I'm back. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. I'm better. Okay, so there was an episode on Friends where the character of Ross and the character of Rachel are now together, but they agreed between each other to have a celebrity hall pass. You know, the celebrity hall pass, it means if you're in a relationship, a committed relationship, you're dating exclusively and you're not going to see anyone else ever again. Some people make a celebrity hall pass list. And in Rachel and Ross's case, they made a list of like 5 people that if they met them, they have the hall pass. They get to like date someone outside the relationship if they meet one of their hall passes. And the gag was that Ross, being like uptight and a nerd, spent way too long like deliberating and compiling his hall pass list of 5, and he really fancied Isabella Rossellini, but in the end he left her off the list. But then he had the list of prospects laminated to carry around in his wallet, so he could show the laminated list of hall passes. And then the gag is he bumps into Isabella Rossellini, who was left off the list, and Isabella Rossellini is hugely miffed that it's been laminated and she's not on the list. So, my second husband, I've been married twice. I was widowed once, and now I am a independent woman, shall we say. With my second husband and my second ex-husband, when we first got married, we decided as a joke to make the laminate list, right? So it was like, because we were talking about the Friends episode, and it was like, theoretically, who would you have on your laminates list? So you've got to choose 5. Okay, now, bear in mind, I made this list in 2009, 2010, so it's like a long time ago. So most of those people on my laminates list have turned out to be either bastards or married, which I didn't know at the time. Okay, so in no particular order, here are my laminates. Okay, Colin Farrell goes without saying, obviously, because Colin Farrell is my dream man, and there's only 1 degree of separation left between me and Colin. Since I've come to Ireland, I seem to have met so many people that have met Colin. Alas, I have not yet. I'm closing in on you, Colin. I'm closing in. Colin Farrell. Ricky Gervais. Oh, my goodness. So funny. He is, of course, extremely dedicated to his other half, Jane. I don't know the man, but yes. Ricky Gervais and Colin Farrell. As you can see, I love smart and funny so far, right? Brad Pitt. Goes without saying again, probably. Brad Pitt, at the time, that was more like taking one for the team, dare I say, because my ex at the time had a thing for Angelina Jolie. But he had a thing for like Angelina Jolie from like Gone in 60 Seconds. or Fast and the Furious, or whichever one of those films it is. So how do you think for Angelina Jolie of that era? And at the time, she was married to Brad Pitt, so it seemed only fair that Brad Pitt should be one of my laminates, given that his laminate included Angelina. So I've got Colin Farrell, Ricky Gervais, Brad Pitt, Tex Perkins. Tex Perkins is an Australian rock star. He used to be with a band called The Cruel Sea and Be Suburban, and he is tall and smart and funny. And yes, he was my fourth laminate. And the fifth on my laminate list. Drum roll, please. The fifth on my laminate list, none other than Mr. Dylan Moran. Ah, Dylan, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. So Dylan Moran is just, I've just adored Dylan Moran for decades, from afar, obviously. I've never met him, nor shall I ever meet him, I would say. However, earlier this year, I got to see Dylan Moran on stage at Vicar Street in Dublin as part of the Palestinian fundraising for Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, fundraising for Palestinian people and Gaza because the horror that is being perpetrated upon Palestine by the genocidal maniac Netanyahu. And now Dylan Moran is touring Ireland with a work in progress show, which is basically just he's improving, and it's just fascinating to see him work. So last night I went to Ballyshannon, which is one of my favourite towns in the whole wide world, up in Donegal, and I saw Dylan Moran perform last night in Ballyshannon, and it was fabulous. You see, it was a win-win for me. It was one of those moments in the universe where you think, well, perhaps it's possible to manifest good things that are particularly suited to your own wants and needs and desires, possibly, but only when it's done with love and goodwill. See, I am utterly obsessed with the town Ballyshannon because in 1861, one of my great-great-great-grandmothers was a 14-year-old orphan girl, and she got on board, she was from Ballyshannon, and she got on board a ship as part of a young immigrant scheme of her own volition, but only 14. It just doesn't bear thinking about, does it, this poor child? And then went all the way out to Australia, to a little town called Capel, where she married a Cockney butcher, and they set up she had many children. They ran a dairy farm and a stagecoach pub and all sorts of things. And anyway, so she came from Ballyshannon. And so I go up to Ballyshannon often and have a poke around, and it's the island's oldest town. It's beautiful. It's on the mouth of the River Erne. It's just the scene of so many historic events and very pretty. It has a Rory Gallagher festival there every year. It's got a folk festival on there right at the moment. And when I went to buy tickets to Dylan Moran, when I saw he was appearing in Ballyshannon, I'm like, it just doesn't get better than that. Not only is it Dylan Moran, but it's in Ballyshannon, the town that I adore. I live in Mayo, of course, and I love Mayo, but I have a very big soft spot for Ballyshannon. So I went and saw Dylan Moran in Ballyshannon, front row, front and centre, to look up at the man and adore him right in with my eyes, as it were. And he did a bit of crowd work with the front row, so he spoke to me. He spoke to me. He said my black top was fetching. And when he talked to me, I went, meaning me? And he went, yes, you, clutching yourself in that young starlet fashion. Moi? Yes, oui, vous. I was like, oh, I can die happy now. Dylan Moran spoke to me. There you go. And it was even, because it was quite surreal, you see, for me, like, watching Dylan Moran in things like black books. For example, just, I used to have black books on, the DVD set. And my kids used to say I was very much like Bernard Black, like the grumpy bookshop owner. Which, in hindsight, maybe not so good to be compared to Bernard Black by your children. But I did read a lot. I've always had my nose in a book, you see, and I had a particular dour outlook on life, I suppose. So I could see why they would think. Also, like Bernard Black, I'm a filth wizard. So there you go. So it was surreal for me to watch Dylan Moran from afar in Australia for so many years, and then suddenly be like 5 foot away from him and have him like speak directly to me while I'm in the audience, and he's travelling around at the moment, courtesy of Roisin Dove Comedy Productions. Right, Roisin Dove is a big comedy venue and music venue down in Galway, and the comedy booker there is a lovely chap called Niall. He's also a comedian. He's just the sweetest man in all the world. I adore him. So he is sort of like helping he's managing the tour basically and travelling with Dylan Moran. And I know Niall, right? And so I spotted Niall outside and said hello to him at the hall. And then the guy who was opening for Dylan Moran on the tour, well, on the Mayo, well, this part, I don't know if it's a whole tour, but last night and tonight in Mayo, is a Mayo comic called Bob Hennigan. And Bob and I have been on the same bill before. Bob runs a little comedy club down in Galway. He's a very nice chap. So, there you go. It's a wonderful, although surreal experience for me to be an island a long way from where I started in Australia, sort of be part of the comedy scene, because, I gig and that sort of thing, and know all these people who have such a close association with the great, as it were, because Dylan Moran is one of the greats. Very funny man indeed. He was doing sort of like a little stream of consciousness doodle on some writing paper, or some art paper on an easel on the stage last night. And when he left, it was all I could do to restrain myself from scrabbling onto the stage and stealing his artwork. Because I'll have a little souvenir from Dylan Moran. But anyway, that's it. That's what I've been up to. I'll let you in a little secret. I bought another ticket to see Dylan Moran. I'm not a groupie. I'm not. But when Dylan Moran is so fascinating to watch him improv and just do things on the fly, and everything he did on stage last night in Ballyshannon was completely different from what he did when he performed at Vicar Street. So, for 2 reasons. One, I want to see at the next gig I've got a ticket to see him at, if he does any of the same material, or if he improvs again. I'm just fascinated to watch him work because he's brilliant. And 2, of course, the comedy rule of 3s. I think I've got third time's a charm. Third time is a charm. I think it's a fitting comedy tribute that I go and see Mr. Moran for a 3rd time. All right, that's it for me. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thank you very much. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for sticking around. Now, I do read all of the comments, so I won't leave the chat up for this one. I probably won't see the chat for while this was live. But if you comment after I've ended the stream, I will see your comments. I do like it when people comment on my comedy and comment on my topics and that sort of thing. It's wonderful but I do know there's a bit of a language barrier for a lot of my viewers. So thank you for sticking around. Alright, if you go to the About page on my channel, there are links to other social media sites where you can find me. And apart from that, I'll be back. I'll see you when you've got nothing on.